Round 2. Fight.
Welcome back for the second round of my first mock draft. If you haven't seen the first round yet, I'll put a link up in the top. There'll be a link down in the bottom. There'll be a link all over the place. But I encourage you to go and watch that first, then come back and watch this one. I love breaking up my first mock draft of the year into 2 videos like this because it allows me to get the first round out before the Senior Bowl without overreacting to any of the performances or rumors coming out of there. And it's not often that there was a guy that was not already in the first or second round discussion going into the Senior Bowl. Also, I love to get you guys' feedback on the first one. Kind of stimulates the first night of the draft and then going home and being able to sleep on it, and then the GMs come back in the next day and make up for positions that they neglected in the first round. Please do me a huge favor, make sure you hit the like button on not one but both of these mock draft videos. I really need that YouTube algorithm to kick in for me, and your engagement on these videos will really help go a long way. With that said, let's jump into the second round. At pick number 33, we've got the Jaguars. They went KT number 1, so they have to shift all their focus to the offensive line with the first pick in the second round. I toyed with Zion Johnson late in the first, and then he went on to dominate at the Senior Bowl while also making headlines for staying after practices to work on his snapping, just in case the team wants to play him at center. Props to him for playing the media machine to his advantage, but he was probably going to wind up in this range anyways based off of his tape. Zion is an interior offensive lineman, but he's just the best value at this point, and the Jaguars are not in position to pass up blue chip offensive line prospects in favor of positional value, say an offensive tackle, for example. At pick 34, we've got the Detroit Lions. They had an awesome first round, getting a future leader for the defense and the offense. Now it's time to surround that quarterback with more weapons. Like I mentioned, it's always fun to get to see you guys' comments on the first round before I type up the commentary for the second round. People were shocked that I did not have Garrett Wilson in there, and it's because he's not going to wow people during his draft process. His instinctual ability to find seams and get open is not going to show up in a 40-yard dash or some other kind of workout. Without that, I think that he's going to end up looking relatively pedestrian on paper, and that's why I actually see him going later than the guys with some sort of outlier measurables. At number 35, we've got the New York Jets, and they double dipped on defense in the first round, but still need another long-term option at the cornerback position. Kyrie Elam has NFL bloodlines and the length that Robert Saleh covets for this defense. At number 36, we've got the New York Giants, and Jabril Peppers is a free agent, and even though Giants fans probably want him back because he is the consolation prize they got from trading away OBJ, but he's really not worth the contract that he's probably going to demand from another team that sees that ceiling, ignores his floor. I think that you can replace Peppers with another Michigan safety in Daxton Hill. He could be paired with Xavier McKinney to give the Giants a much more consistent duo in coverage. At number 37, we've got the Texans, and man, is this franchise a mess, and I feel horrible for Texans fans. Hiring Lovie Smith over Brian Flores is essentially a confirmation that Flores is about to be blackballed from the league. I would have rather they just had the balls to face the backlash and just hire Josh McCown if they really thought that he's going to be a good NFL head coach one day. Instead, they'll probably fire Lovie in 2 years and hire Josh McCown then, but until then, Lovie Smith does run a Tampa 2 defense. He's going to need a much better pass rush to make this defense work. Kingsley Enagbare is a versatile pass rusher with experience in multiple fronts. I don't think he's getting enough attention right now and would be a steal in this draft outside of the first. At number 38, we've got the Jets back on the clock, and now that the defense has been addressed, the Jets need to secure more offensive line talent. Ohio State's Nicholas Petit-Ferrer has got left tackle potential, but is also athletic enough to play on the right. It really sucks to see Mekhi Becton struggling with health injuries because the red flags were there before, they drafted a man of that size. So to cover their butts on that side at the same time, I would draft a guy that could potentially be a starting left tackle one day, just in case Becton can't stay healthy. At pick 39, we've got the Chicago Bears making their first pick of the draft, and I remember saying that the Bears would lose Allen Robinson in free agency this time last year, and then the Bears still went and franchise tagged him. Well, he punished them with the saltiest performance in his career, and they're going to need an upgrade this year. Darnell Mooney's been a really nice surprise for them, but he can't carry this passing game alone. A wide receiver like David Bell would be a really nice addition to the offense. He's a skilled route runner, he's got good size, he's a decent blocker, which will fit in well with what should be a run-heavy offense moving forward. At pick number 40, we've got the Denver Broncos, who went offensive line in the first because I'm operating under the impression that they will get a veteran quarterback, probably one whose name rhymes with Karen Dodgers. So now I want to make sure that the defense can keep up with a potentially high-scoring offense and getting an edge rusher. Not that this is a surprise to you guys. The Broncos knew that edge rushers was going to be high on their priority list when they moved on from Von Miller. On top of that, Bradley Chubb is entering the final year of his contract. So Myjai Sanders, am I saying that right? Myjai Sanders would be the pick here for me. Let me know if I'm pronouncing that name wrong. The Broncos are looking at hiring the Rams defensive back coach for their defensive coordinator job. He's got experience under Vic Fangio. So I do think that this defense could have a smooth transition this offseason, but I definitely would add multiple edge rushers if possible. And at pick 41, we've got the Seattle Seahawks, and I feel like I say this every year, but just a reminder, I hate projecting picks for the Seahawks. They just always do some off-the-wall stuff that you've never thought of. Part of me just wants to give them Kenneth Walker for the memes because it's just, isn't that on brand for them, right? But they're likely moving on from Russell Wilson this offseason, so let's try and replace him with one of these Kmart quality quarterbacks. I'm not as high on Sam Howell as some, but he came back this year and was really solid despite losing a ton of his supporting cast, and that is the kind of stuff that you want to see from a college quarterback prospect. They should be elevating those around them and not the other way around. At pick 42, we've got the Washington Commanders, and I still cannot take that name seriously, but last year they went first round linebacker with the athletic phenom Jamin Davis. His rookie season was underwhelming. He looked out of place at times, and the play from the linebacker position was a part of the reason for the decline from this defensive unit as a whole. Penn State's Brandon Smith is more experienced at multiple linebacker positions. He can come in, offer a little bit more stability, while Jamin Davis is allowed to move around a little more and be put in better position to take advantage of his physical abilities rather than asking him to do too much mentally. All right, at 43, we've got the Falcons, and they ignored their glaring need for pass rushers in the first round to take the best player available, and I think that this edge class being so deep will allow them to still get an explosive pass rusher here at number 43. Drake Jackson is a mid-late first rounder in most years. He's really slight, might remind you of a slightly less athletic version of Vic Beasley, but I do like his fit with Dean Pease. At pick 44, we've got the Cleveland Browns, and they saw Larry Ogunjobi bounce back with the Bengals defense this year, but they had their own reclamation project in Malik McDowell from Michigan State. Well, he's an exclusive rights free agent and should be back on a one-year deal. That leaves McDowell, Tommy Togiai, and Jordan Elliott as the only other defensive tackles on the roster. Oklahoma's Perrion Winfrey is an athletic, penetrating defensive tackle and was one of the biggest winners at the Senior Bowl. He would give the Browns a building block instead of this revolving door in the middle of their defensive line, which I know Myles Garrett would probably love to see. At pick 45, we've got the Baltimore Ravens, and they're going to hate picking right after the Browns. They probably have some interest in Perrion Winfrey themselves, but with him off the board, they turn their attention to Jaquan Brisker, the former college teammate of last year's pick, Odafe Owe. Now, Chuck Clark is an up-and-comer, but he's more of an in-the-box safety. They need a single high guy like Brisker. They might bring Deshaun Elliott back on a prove-it deal, but he still doesn't offer the range of a Jaquan Brisker, but some sort of defensive back here would make a lot of sense for the Ravens. At pick 46, we've got the Vikings up, and they are hiring the Rams offensive coordinator, Kevin O'Connell. Now, this move feels like one to keep Kirk Cousins around for a few more years, and I actually wonder if this might have been the line in the sand for Jim Harbaugh. Kirk Cousins just doesn't seem like a who's got it better than us sort of quarterback, you know what I mean? But either way, Kirk is going to need a restructure because he counts like $45 million against the cap this year. So bring that number down a lot, and with this quarterback landscape this offseason, it does make sense to keep him around. That also gives you another year to develop Kellen Mond, see if you got anything there, but don't just throw away first or second round picks at random quarterbacks, you know what I mean? So let's solidify that offensive line with Kentucky's Darian Kennard. I think this guy is a day one starter for the Vikings at right guard. Gives them a dude that rivals in size to Bryant McKinney, any excuse to bring up the old Love Boat scandal guy. Let me know in the comments if you're old enough to remember that story. Moving on. At 47, we've got the Colts, and outside of quarterback, I'd say their roster is pretty solid, but they have been trying to get this safety position figured out for a long time. Lewis Cine offered some championship experience from a single high safety. Pair him with Khari Willis, and you got a pretty solid duo. Although I do think that Matt Eberflus will be quite a loss for this defense, so I'm interested to see how they respond. At 48, we've got the Chargers. They've also got a really solid roster from top to bottom. Maybe it's the Justin Herbert effect, but I think they are in position to take a luxury pick here. Austin Eckler has far exceeded his NFL draft scouting report, but he shouldn't be used as an every down running back personally. Kenneth Walker could take the pressure off Herbert and the offensive line. They really do need a thumper. Walker was the best running back in the country last year. Wide receiver is also a strong possibility if they lose Mike Williams in free agency, but I think the best value here is at running back over wide receiver. The Saints are starting over with a new head coach in Dennis Allen, and they should be in the quarterback market early on in the 2022 NFL draft. Carson Strong would be the top quarterback prospect in this draft class if it was 2012, but teams want more mobility in 2022. And the Saints didn't just pay Ryan Ramczyk to only block for Taysom Hill on quarterback draw plays. They could overcorrect from Taysom Hill and opt for the traditional pocket passer in Carson Strong, pair him with their first round wide receiver, and the Saints offense has a much brighter future than they currently are faced with, even if it's not going to show up in 2022. At pick number 50, we've got the Miami Dolphins, and I think that Mike McDaniel was a great hire for them. I hate to say that because their owner Stephen Ross has now made this franchise one that I hope for nothing but misfortune for them until he's forced to sell the team. And I grew up with the Ace Ventura generation that made me kind of an unofficial Dolphins fan, but ultimately they appear to be in good hands offensively, and I love what this hire could do for Tua because I want him to succeed. And I know that some of you are going to say that because McDaniel comes from a Shanahan line that he can plug and play any running back and get results, but maybe his time in San Francisco taught him that you don't want to be forced to have to look under every other rock to find a guy that you can trust, and that's why I have them taking Isaiah Spiller here. He seems like a really good fit in a zone blocking scheme where he can make one cut and get upfield and offer them more of a home run threat than they've had in Miami for a while. He's also a reliable pass catcher, which would allow him to be a 3-down running back for them and a nice run after catch option for Tua when, you know, he ultimately checks it down. At pick number 51, we've got the Eagles back on the clock, and Jalen Reagor has been a bust so far. Even if he goes on to have a decent career, he'll never really get out of Justin Jefferson's shadow as long as he was with the Eagles. And I don't think that Howie Roseman is afraid to take an L in the draft and fix his mistake with another wide receiver, especially with all the draft capital that they have in the first 2 rounds. Penn State's Jahan Dotson brings a similar skill set to Jalen Reagor, other than the drops, of course, making him an easy fit to be his eventual replacement. At 52, we've got the Steelers on the clock. They got good mileage out of Joe Hayden, and maybe they should continue to go the veteran route because they've had much better luck there with DBs than they've had in the draft. But in case Kevin Colbert wants to draft one more cornerback for the road, Darian Kendrick is yet another Georgia Bulldog expected to go high in this draft class. He's an outside zone cornerback. He's also a very willing tackler, but I would not blame the Steelers if they wanted to go offensive line here. At 53, we've got the Raiders. They went defensive tackle in the first round, and I almost went quarterback here because Derek Carr is entering a contract year, and I think that Josh McDaniels simply won't be able to resist adding a rookie quarterback at some point. Then I wanted to get petty, have him steal a cornerback from Bill Belichick with the Patriots picking right after them, but I came back to them solidifying the offensive line with little-known Louisiana Lafayette's offensive tackle Max Mitchell. This would allow Alex Leatherwood to remain inside at guard, and the Raiders would have flipped this offensive line in a matter of 2 years and had a pretty bright potential moving forward. At 54, we've got the Patriots on cue, and they're going to let JC Jackson walk in free agency because that's just how Belichick operates. He'll develop another JC Jackson before he pays a JC Jackson. And Kyler Gordon is the other Washington cornerback, but I think that he's an even better athlete than Trent McDuffie and would probably be an intriguing player to mold for Belichick. At 55, we've got the Arizona Cardinals, and speaking of 55, I think they need to pay Chandler Jones, but even if they choose to bring him back, they should probably still hedge their bets with a pass rush specialist at some point early in this draft class. Arnold Ebbiquite is yet another pass rusher from Penn State with great traits. He needs to get in the right system though, and Vance Joseph would know how to deploy him in a nice rotation, make him an instant rookie impact, but they should still bring Chandler Jones back. But the biggest concern should be what's going on with Kyler Murray. I gotta say personally, maybe I'm getting old and this might sound very get off my lawn, but I feel like he's being a little bit of a brat right now. If he actually tries to get a trade from the Cardinals, he's gonna be a hard dude to root for moving forward. But I probably don't have enough information, but that is an issue I've got my eye on for sure moving forward. At pick number 56, we've got the Dallas Cowboys, and even more rumors coming out of Dallas that the Cowboys might be moving on from Amari Cooper and DeMarcus Lawrence this offseason in an attempt to get some salary cap relief. Well, gotta be honest, I hate the idea of moving on from DeMarcus Lawrence because he is so good and it doesn't even really save that much money, but I do kind of get it with Amari Cooper because you can save $16 million on the cap, and you're starting to see some of the things they were saying about him when he was with the Raiders in Oakland, that he gets a little bit disinterested, that he's got that laissez-faire sort of attitude. Guy seemed like he was just always getting nicked up, like a little bit of an injury where he would make this awesome catch and then he'd come off the field dramatically. I don't know. I love Amari Cooper as a player. I think he's one of the best wide receivers in the game. I don't think that he was targeted enough this year, but I would hate to see him go. I'd rather see him and DeMarcus Lawrence restructure so that they can stay on, but the tea leaves are kind of setting up for this to be a wash of a season where they just clean up the cap, plan on moving on from Mike McCarthy next year, and then bring Sean Payton in, but that's a lot of speculation, but we'll stay tuned there. The Cowboys are also likely to lose their breakout tight end Dalton Schultz in free agency, so instead of getting another wide receiver this early in the draft, I could see the Cowboys finally addressing the tight end position with a receiving threat like Jalen Weidermeyer. Maybe it's the Aggie uniform, but I do get Martellus Bennett vibes from him, and Jerry Jones could see a second chance as having that big athletic power forward tight end that he's been looking for ever since. So yeah, sign me up for Weidermeyer. At number 57, we've got the Buffalo Bills. They went cornerback in the first round, and now they can look at protecting their quarterback investment while opening some more lanes for the running game. Lakeith Smith is a former tight end who made the switch to guard at Virginia Tech, so you know he's got good athleticism and the quick feet needed to play along the offensive line in the NFL. He could be the tone setter that you thought that Cody Ford would be. At number 58, we've got the Falcons back, and they've been trying to find a running back for a while now. They forced Cordarrelle Patterson into that role last year, and he actually had an awesome season, but I bet you somebody else pays him to do that same thing. But if the Falcons are really behind Matt Ryan getting another shot at this thing, it is time for them to get a reliable running game instead of just signing guys like Mike Davis. Iowa State's Breece Hall is an experienced running back that can come in from day one, provide an inside rushing attack. However, I also toyed with the idea of James Cook, the younger brother of Dalvin, and also a local product from Georgia. He might be a better fit as a receiving back and home run threat. The difference between these two guys is between mileage and consistency, and maybe they bring Cordarrelle Patterson back, and Breece Hall would be a much better fit as a complement to him as an inside running back. At At 59, we've got the Packers. I had a small rant about Aaron Rodgers. Make sure you check that out in my first round version of this. But basically, to sum it up, Aaron Rodgers is not going to be a Green Bay Packer next year. And until Jordan Love develops Aaron Rodgers' pocket presence, the Packers will need to upgrade this offensive line in order to protect him. 4/5 of the offensive line is set, but the left side has been hit by the injury bug lately, and the right tackle spot needs a vast improvement in my opinion. UCLA's Sean Ryan just kind of feels like a Packers offensive lineman. He's got experience at left tackle, but due to his size, he's probably more of a guard in the NFL. I think his best option would be a right tackle for them at this point, with potential to fill a swing tackle role for them in the future if David Bakhtiari is starting to break down on a regular. At pick number 60, we've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and lost in this Tom Brady retirement is how much the Bucs are going to miss his sidekick Rob Gronkowski. Gronk really provided a great threat in the middle of the field that opened things up for the wide receivers. Cameron Brate is a serviceable starter, but instead of going wide receiver here to place for Chris Godwin, who's probably going to leave in free agency, I'm going to go with Isaiah Likely, who is like Evan Ingram, an H-back type, except he's a much better blocker than Evan Ingram while still providing similar athleticism as a receiving option. At pick 61, we've got the 49ers, and they can't keep relying on veteran cornerbacks like Jason Verrett, Josh Norman. K'Wan Williams was a solid addition for them as a slot cornerback, but this defense needs long cornerbacks on the outside, and I think that Martin Emerson is a baby Richard Sherman who has been battle tested in the SEC. And then at 62, we've got the Kansas City Chiefs, and Melvin Ingram provided a huge boost for the Chiefs pass rush last year, but his contract is expiring, and it's unlikely that he cuts the Chiefs a deal to stay in Kansas City, so the Chiefs should probably look to address the pass rush early in the draft. Oklahoma's Nick Bonito is probably best suited in a 3-4, but man, I would love to see him as a pass rush specialist opposite of Frank Clark. And there's not a huge need at linebacker for the Chiefs, but he could even play a little bit off the ball linebacker and offer you a lot of versatility to disguise your scheme and your defensive packages with a guy like him on the field. And then at 63, remember this is before the Super Bowl, so if the Bengals are picking here, they lost. If they're picking at 64, they won. But either way, Joe Burrow took CJ Uzomah, turned him into a starting quality tight end in the NFL. I fully expect the Bengals to bring him back because I think he is an emotional leader on that team, but he is going to turn 30 years old this year and is still limited as an all-around tight end. Trey McBride is a tight end that can do it all and would give Burrow one of the deepest group of weapons in the NFL. And then at 64, this is the Broncos pick after the Von Miller trade. And even though the Broncos are all in with a veteran quarterback named Karen Dodgers, they can't guarantee to have a Peyton Manning or Tom Brady success story here. In fact, before those two did it, this whole veteran quarterback on a new team thing usually meant that the quarterback was washed. Now, I'm not saying that I think that Aaron Rodgers is washed or Russell Wilson or whoever may be the potential fill-in here, but I do know what this is kind of a bonus pick here. I want to get them a quarterback successor to take over in a couple years. Desmond Ritter is one of my favorite quarterbacks in this draft class. He elevated the Cincinnati team to new levels that they could never believe, and he brings that traditional prototypical size while also providing some sort of modern day mobility. This guy was a 3-star high school recruit, worked his way up, and took a non-Power 5 team into the college football playoffs. So from 3-star to 3rd string quarterback, I think he can probably do the same thing there if he's got some time and patience. All right, so that's round 2. Once again, I hope that you didn't watch this whole thing thinking it was the first round and wondering where all the ballers were at and what's up with this draft order. Make sure you go and watch the first one if you have not already. Make sure you hit the like button on both videos and subscribe if you're new to the channel. I desperately need to get a little more traction on that first round mock draft so I can sort of jumpstart my whole off-season program here. We can start cranking out some more videos a little bit quicker. Thank you guys so much for watching to the end. I greatly appreciate everybody watching, liking, commenting, subscribing on all these videos. I hope everyone has a fun and safe Super Bowl, and I will see you all in the next video.